Hello everyone, my name is Keely Brown and I will be giving you a presentation today on the Malala Fund. Now for some of you who don't know who Malala is, she's pretty cool, and some fun facts about her are that at the age of 17 in 2014, she became the youngest person to win the Nobel Peace Prize after surviving an assassination attempt by the Taliban. Now, Malala is from Pakistan, and in Pakistan at the time, there was a big incentive for boys to get an education, but for girls, it was more of a back burner kind of thing. There wasn't really a big push for girls to get an education. And so the Taliban, they were seeking out girls who were getting an education, and unfortunately, that led to the assassination attempt on Malala. She survived, she's okay and thriving, but that moment sparked her interest in making sure that education is a right, not a privilege, for all girls across the world. Now, a brief overview of this organization is that it is a nonprofit organization that is focused, like I said before, on giving educational opportunities for young girls across the world. This organization has its hands everywhere in the world that you could possibly think of trying to get girls to get an education. But some of the major places that they are really focused on is Afghanistan, Brazil, Ethiopia, India, Lebanon, Nigeria, Pakistan, and Turkey. Now, looking more on the social innovation side of the mission of giving education to young girls everywhere, the Malala Fund advocates that are at the local, national, and international levels are providing resources and policy changes that improve access to education for girls. Now, back in week 5, we touched on this very briefly, but we looked at this document that gave us the giving results step-by-step process. And the step 1 of this process is outputs, with this social innovation topic of giving education to everyone, focusing on girls as well. We are providing a chance for young girls to receive an education no matter where they are in the world, no matter their standing in life. Step 2 is focusing on the outcomes. So the outcomes of this social innovation is that it's possibly an increase in the desire to learn. There will be a stabilization of the girls' communities, and there will be overall a brighter future for these girls to gain confidence and feel like they belong in this world and that they're not excluded from receiving an education. With step 3, we look at the impact of how providing an education to everyone in the world is followed through. And the Malala Fund believes that local educators and advocates provide the greatest insight, innovation, and energy needed to access barriers that keep girls out of school in their communities. Now, some of the struggles and issues with the idea of giving education to girls and making education available to students and children everywhere is that there's poverty, there's gender bias, there's quality and resources that sometimes aren't attainable. With poverty, we look closely at if a country is more developed than another and if they are able to have the proper funding and materials given to them in order to teach the children education. That also deals with quality as well. Gender is kind of the main topic of this presentation. We look at how they look at boys to get the education, but girls sometimes are given away in child marriages, or they are sought as being just stay-at-home moms rather than having the opportunity to get an education. And with resources, this is basically kind of tapping into the poverty and quality that I touched on before, just making sure that they have the proper resources in order to fund the projects and fund the schools, and making sure that this education is as quality as it can be. Now, one of the things that touches on this social innovation is the Convention on the Rights of the Child of 1989. Basically, what this did is that it further defined children's rights to education. The Millennium development goals and other international conventions have since reinforced education as a universal right to be guaranteed to all children. Improvements. Now, while we focus on the improvements of the Malala Fund, let's look at this more on the social innovation side. So, while the Malala Fund does focus on countries that have issues with education, there are countries who still, in fact, have this issue. Looking more on the social innovation side, there are countries that are kind of getting more of a spotlight on. They're kind of like a hotspot of receiving education and making education worthwhile and accessible to every child there. But there's also countries within this innovation idea that aren't getting as much attention. One of the improvements that I would like to see is that these countries who are not shy, who are not giving as much of attention to, that they are given the attention. Because while it's good to focus on those hotspot countries, we need to make sure that education is accessible to everyone. It's in the mission statement of a lot of other nonprofit organizations, and with the social innovation of trying to get an education for everybody, it is important to actually include everybody. Now, when we're talking about scaling this innovation, there's a lot that we can do here. We can look at could be programs, services, and possibly products that could be given to these countries that don't have the greatest education or little to no education at all, as a way of showcasing the different ways that education can be received. Over the course of a 3-year grant, education champions implement ambitious and targeted projects and participate in advocacy campaigns to change local and national policies that hinder girls' education access. This is very important because there needs to be a change in policies in order to make this social innovation idea work. If these policies are leaving out girls, that does not help them. So there needs to be a change in it to include them rather than exclude them. And to finish up this presentation, I found a quote by Malala that is just powerful. It says, "Education is education. We should learn everything, then choose which path to follow. Education is neither Eastern nor Western. It is human." And here are my references. And thank you guys so much for watching my presentation.